Welcome to CARDESIGN.ACADEMY, and I'm going to be continuing my introduction to basic automotive vehicle packaging. And in this one, I'm going to be doing this high H-point pickup truck. So what does high H-point mean? H-point is the hip point of the occupant. So for something like a sports car, you have a very low H-point, and for something like a truck, you tend to have a very high H-point. That has a lot of implications into how the occupant is positioned, how they see, what kind of comfort level they have. In the last video, I showed you how to build the sports car package. What I'm going to be doing now is showing you the truck package. So as before, I'm going to be working off of some published dimensions of a comparable full-size truck, the Ford F-150, and then I'm going to be using the rigged chassis tool. So let's turn that on. So we're going to be using the rigged chassis tool to define the dimensions of that vehicle. So we're just going to be using the numerical entries here. So for the truck, we're going to have a wheelbase of 3710. We're going to have an overall width of 2190 minus a tire width of 315. So 2190, let's just round that to 300. So 300, 21 minus 300, 2190 minus 300, let's call that 1900. Let's just call it 1900. So 1900 is our track. And then we're going to get into our tire size, 315, 70, R17. So 315, 315, 70, 70, R17. Those are Ford F-150 Raptor tires and wheels. I'm going to bump the rim size out to something bigger, because this is going to be more of a everyday truck. So now we have a correct set of wheels and tires, correctly dimensioned for a full-size truck. Next thing we're going to do is grab the sketch. I'm going to scale it up, and you can see that there's a side view in here. I'm going to be using this side view pencil sketch as my starting point. So what I'm going to do is scale that up to match the positioning of the tires as best I can. And then using Smart Move, I'm going to slide it over to the center plane. And I'm gonna put this on a layer called I have it on a layer called Truck Sketch. So I'm gonna just turn the opacity down. Next thing I'm gonna do is place my occupant. Now this is a high H-point vehicle, which means this occupant's gonna be sitting higher off the ground, and he's going to be sitting in a more upright position than a sports car. So I'm going to grab the full-size male mannequin. Oh yeah, I need to go to the occupant layer. We have our full-size man. You can see he's not even standing as tall as the truck. That's how big this thing is. I'm going to turn him around, hit the check box. I'm going to give him the white tune shader, and I'm going to start to position him. I'm going to tilt him back just a little bit, but his H point is going to be quite high off the ground. So I'm going to turn on my control points, slide it using the thumb joystick on the right side. Notch that over. I can have much more control over the positioning of this occupant. So I'm just going to grab the legs. He's just going to be sitting in a very nice, comfortable, upright driving position. So hands are going to be at about elbow level versus the sports car, which is more at shoulder level. Hands are typically placed about shoulder width for a steering wheel. And I'm also going to duplicate him because we're going to have a rear occupant as well. Send him back. As you can see, a full-size pickup truck is quite roomy when it comes to the interior space. Since this occupant is not driving, I'm going to just drop his hands down to his lap. So that's a pretty generous package for a full-size truck. So next thing I'm going to do is draw the main theme lines. So using my ink tool, I'm going to switch to a matte black brush, and I'm going to be setting my brush to planar. As you can see, my control plane is here. It's kind of off center here. I'm just going to grab it with my left trigger, kind of pulling it. If I pull it kind of halfway, you can see it snaps to an axis. And when that vertical axis is green, it means it's aligned to the vertical plane. So then I'm just going to move it towards the center plane, and it snaps itself to the center plane. So now I can draw. Hang on, let me just lock my truck sketch layer. Okay, so now I have a nice ink-like sketch line. I'm just going to use the thumb joystick to adjust the weight of that line a little bit. So then I just go ahead and start drawing the center line. You can see it's quite messy, so I use the Simplify Points tool, and I just adjust the points to get a nice smooth line. This is very much like what we used to do back in the day when I was learning. We did this using rolls of black tape on this plastic film called Mylar, and we would draw these full size on the wall in the studio to give the engineers an idea of how our design concept would fit on the package. So what we're doing now is we've established a package, and now we're starting to lay out those key theme lines. On that package. I'm going to go ahead and turn the occupants off for a minute so I can concentrate on capturing the main theme lines on this thing. These tape drawings used to be very laborious. They're much easier now. This takes minutes, what used to take hours. By the way, you can do this. You don't need Gravity Sketch to do a basic wireframe dimensional drawing. You can use any CAD program. Okay, so if we want to start getting some dimension to this thing, let's turn our occupants back on. And we can start to take all of these theme lines and bring them out. And as I move these lines out, they stay planar. However, some of these lines are going to have to move off of the planar lock. So, for example, I'm going to turn off planar on this line so I can bring, because this is actually a cross section of the cabin. It needs to come out quite a bit. Same with this one. So you can see it's starting to get some dimension. This line especially is going to need to get off of the planar limitations. So one of the terminologies we use to describe the cabin sort of angling in the end view, we call that tumble home. And something like a sports car will have lots of tumble home, whereas a truck or a van might have far less tumble home. You can see I'm starting to bring some dimension to this thing. Turn off planar with this one. And you see very quickly we have a nice representation of, oh yeah, this one's got to get planar turned off. Nice dimensional representation of the theme. And we can take this as far as we want. By the way, if you want to extend a line, you can just grab the point and hold the trigger to extend it. You can also add additional points to tighten up the edges. You can see very quickly we're getting some real dimension in this thing. So I've gone through my truck package and I've completed a really nice wireframe. It captures all of the major theme lines, all of the key volumes. I've also added a battery pack and a pair of electric motors. Being that this is a high H-point vehicle, we are able to package a pretty substantial battery pack below the floor, which is going to give us lots of range, lots of towing power, lots of hauling power, and so on and so on. So let's talk about some of the key considerations in a high H-point vehicle for the occupants. Now, again, H-point is measured from the hip of the occupant to the ground. As you can see, this is a very long distance, a very high H-point. This is going to give him a commanding view of the road. So he's going to have a nice downward vision line. He's going to have to clear that hood, but he's going to have a very nice commanding downward vision. Okay. So let's talk about some other key dimensions. Let's talk about hip to heel. So hip to heel is the height between the occupant's hip position and their heel position, the vertical dimension. A high hip to heel is common in a high H-point vehicle. So that indicates that the person is sitting quite upright. Same thing with the back angle. The back angle is quite upright. It's not leaned back too far, but very comfortable. So this is a very comfortable, upright, commanding seating position. You'll also see that his hands are sort of aligned, with sort of midway through the upper arm, not all the way with the shoulder, like the sports car. So he's his arms are in a more relaxed position, and he's sitting quite upright. Again, we have to consider leg swing. So in the case of a full-size truck, the occupants are spread quite a bit apart. Now this is another key dimension I didn't cover in the sports car. This is called couple distance. Couple distance is the distance between the right and the left occupants. And a large pickup truck typically has a big couple distance, and for oftentimes to be able to even package a third occupant in the middle. So that being said, it also enables a really wide interior. It also minimizes leg swing. So he only has to get his leg over a short distance, getting in and out, in order to reach the footboard here. Also, you can see he can easily swing his foot around the front wheel. He's not too far forward. We could probably position him a little further forward, but as you can see, the rear occupants already have a ton of leg room. So yeah, as far as rear occupants go, we have to consider leg room. The distance between the knees and the back of the occupant. Typically in a large vehicle, it's a very generous dimension. We can also look at things like theater seating. So you can see the rear occupant's head is slightly higher than the front occupants, so they can see over the occupants a little bit. And so these are the characteristics of a high H-point vehicle. So when you're inside the vehicle, you can see it's going to be a very open and generous package. This is one of the great things of Gravity Sketch, just being able to see and experience the scale of things. That's something that was never possible in a traditional CAD software. Only in a full-size tape drawing or a full-size seating book could you hope to experience in 3 dimensions the spaciousness. So as you can see, I have this vehicle has a very, very fast windscreen and a very short hood, which means there's a lot of open space here. There's a potential to really use that space in a some sort of functional capacity. And let's talk about one more thing: the ingress and egress. Remember, we talked about in the sports car the ingress targets. As you can see here, the ingress, the top of the window is quite high, so it's going to be very easy for this occupant to get in and out of the vehicle without bumping their heads. This is a very, very open, generous, large scale package, as opposed to the sports car, which is really, really shrink wrapping the body to the occupant as tightly as humanly possible. So these are the key considerations when you're putting together a vehicle package. Think about your target user. Think about the needs and wants with regards to interior accommodation versus exterior silhouette. And today you've been able to see the contrast between a very functional silhouette and interior with a very accommodating interior versus a very sleek, dynamic sports car which has got a very tight interior. So thank you for watching, and hope you learned something. And I hope to see all of you develop some very interesting packages and architectures. Thanks for watching.